Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Muhammadan wa alayhi wa sallam. All praise is due to Allah, Rabb, cherisher and sustainer of all the worlds. May peace and blessings be upon the noble messenger, his family and companions. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an Muhammadan Rasulullah. None has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. This week we will be starting in our new book, talking about body language, and some people call it body English. Depends on what part of the United States you're from, or the Western world. It's used by just about everybody in the world now. Even I have seen commentators who, right after the speech of presidential candidates or any public figures, they have a person who is a professor of body English to read what he just read and to tell, did he tell the truth about this, did he tell the truth about that. So it's become very common, especially in the United States, for people using this. They use it when the police use it, lawyers use it, many professional people, and even they teach it. I was taught it when I was in the military. Every security agency in the world uses it. I don't know about in this country, but everywhere else they use it. But from the way of businessmen especially, they're taught it especially because they have to know, or they will make the wrong decision. They use it whenever you go to be hired for placement into a corporation. They use it against you, and if you're smart, you're reading them. So both of you together. And typically, when both people understand body language, it becomes neutral, and it becomes longer and longer. And sometimes they will release you for a coffee break and bring you back, and release you and bring you back to try to break down your body language. Just one example, typically, the very first thing that happens whenever you meet somebody new, they make an immediate decision about you based upon your looks and how you look. So whatever you want somebody to think, that's the first thing you should decide before you leave or before you start a meeting, is what do I want them to think. Sometimes if I'm going to speak to Arab audiences, I will dress in a thobe like this. But if I'm going to speak in a Western audience, I will dress in Western clothes. You can't change your personal appearance, but the clothing you can. If you're going to speak to people who don't have a high education, you want to make sure you don't use words that they would not understand. Mostly they're going to understand your body language anyway. We were all, a couple of million years ago, speaking through body language anyway. This language of voice is recent, it's not that old. So it's normal for us, even if you don't understand, for instance, a Saudi, when he's speaking to you, he doesn't speak English, you can understand the gestures he's making what he wants. If he asks you to give you that, when he says this, you know he's pointing at something, he wants something. So we use it every day, we just don't know it. Hopefully after you've taken this class and read this manual, most people will understand what I'm talking about. It's not a very big book, but it has a lot of meaning. It's about 50 pages long. Actually, it's not that long. It's only 40 pages. This class was the one, when I gave my last class on how to make dawah, this was the class that the students enjoyed the most. I didn't get any feedback from them. Some of them, because there's a section in here about how to make an interview with your boss, how to ask your boss for a raise, and these kind of things. I don't know if they used what I gave them or not. Typically, after a person sees you for the first time, usually we as Muslims go up and shake a person's hand. I like to tell people just from the handshake I can tell a lot about the person that I'm talking to. To give you an example, when most people meet, if your hand is like this is a neutral position, straight up and down. If the person that you're shaking hands is one of those that likes to reach like this and grab your hand and shake, it means he's very aggressive. He's more than you. He's over the top of you. He makes sure you're underneath him. Even we can teach you that the way to counteract that is when that person does that to you, you reach and put your hand on top of his, and it invalidates him. Now you put yourself over the top of him. So if a person comes to you and he sticks out his hand like this and you put yourself, that means he's a weak person. Maybe he doesn't have self-confidence. There's a lot of things you can learn from the handshake. Does he make eye contact? Does he speak to you? There's a lot you can learn just from the first few minutes of your conversation.
It's natural.
This is normal.
No.
I have noticed that mostly when two Muslims meet, we are always equal. We always straight up and down. I have not had hardly any Muslims that have put their hand over the top of mine. Very few. Matter of fact, I can't even remember anybody. But I know, especially amongst the non-Muslims, I have had people to. And of course, me knowing what I know, I counteract it and put my hand over the top of them, so it balances them back out. And now they know from this that I'm over the top of you. But it's not something that's obvious. But in their mind, they automatically know. So that's how they read body language. So also, if you're talking to a person about Islam and he's one of those people who's very weak and holds his hand like this, try to straighten it back out. Try to pull it back to the normal, the natural. And then he will feel like he's equal to you. If he's like this, he feels like you're over him. Straighten him back up. And so there's a lot you can say. I know you have a degree in languages, but this is one of the most important languages. Even if you don't speak the language they're speaking at all. So some people call it body English. For instance, some commentators or sportscasters were talking about Air Jordan. Said he used a little body English to coax the ball in. If you've ever seen a basketball game, he has all these moves, and they say he used body English. It's not really a correct term. He used English on the ball, but that comes from the spin and how it did. Body English is just one of the myriad of examples of body English that we do and apply to our lives every day, now and then, consciously or unconsciously. We give off, people call it vibes, even when we don't know we are. By the way we talk, by the way we move our eyes. Sometimes it's a problem because you can tell when your children are lying to you just by the way they react. When you ask them, did you do that? You can tell from their actions and the way they speak. If you'll ask somebody to tell you the truth, if the eyes go up one way, it means they're inventing an answer. And if the eyes go up the other way, they're trying to get the truth. One way is an invention, the other way is the truth. So these are things that you can know. By the way the throat goes up and down when he swallows, the lips are dry. There's many ways of, I have an hour-long video in my computer of how they interrogate prisoners to find out if they're telling the truth or not. So if you bother to go to the police station and lie, you're wasting your time because they know even if you don't want them to know.
And even the heartbeat.
But they can, if they put you on the machine, yes, they can tell by heart rate and your body makes movements even if you don't want to. But security agencies, they teach how to beat this machine. For instance, one of the ways they can do it is they put a small tack in their shoe so that every time they answer the question, they step on this tack and cause themselves pain so that their body reacts. And then when they tell a lie, they don't step on this. So you can't tell that. They know how to do it, regardless of... So the machine is not foolproof. It is against a person who doesn't know any better, yes, it can. But against somebody who's been taught how to get around it, it's not foolproof. So exactly what is body language? Body language is the unspoken, or also called nonverbal mode of communication, that we do in every single aspect or interaction with another person. Our wives, our children, our mothers, our fathers, everybody. If you don't know how you reacted with your mother and father when you were a baby, but you know how your children reacted. It took a long time before they could make a sentence. And you could tell what they're thinking. When the baby cried a certain way, he's hungry. When he cries another way, he's sleepy. He cries another way, he needs his diaper changed. You can tell by the pitch and the sound and how he does it what he wants. These are nonverbals. But you believe that in a real life situation, 60 to 80% of the messages that we convey to other people are transmitted through body language. and the actual verbal communication accounts for only 7 to 10%. So there's a lot you can learn by studying just this small book. And this small book, believe me, is very small. They have college courses. You can go all the way to PhD in just this subject by itself. And you'll spend the rest of your life, Walaikum Salam, you'll spend the rest of your life trying to understand it. Our ability to use body language in a positive way and to read other people's minds through their body language separates the men from the boys and can be a powerful tool to our overall personality development. We use it personally, or I use it personally, I use a lot from this book when I'm speaking to people about dialogue. For instance, I taught in the beginning of the first book that if you're talking to a person, you have to look for certain things. If a person is sitting and they have, for instance, they have their feet and legs crossed like this, and maybe the arms is crossed like this. In body language, this means I'm not listening to you. I know more than you do. You're wasting your time. But he's only doing this to the subject you're talking about now. So what you do is you change the subject. When you see somebody like this, and you see how I'm facing this way, and you're over there. If I'm really interested, I'm turned facing you, and my legs are open, and my body's open, and I'm looking at you. If he starts a conversation or enters the conversation, and I'm still here, then somehow they have to switch me so I'm over here. It doesn't mean I'm not listening, maybe I'm just lazy, but if he's locked up, then what you should do is change the subject. When you were interviewing, I was talking about resume. When you give your resume, he gives his resume. You should have written things down on your notepad to find out what his extracurricular activity is. Is he a basketball player? Is he plays golf? Does he like to fish? Does he like to find out about him what he likes? Is he like to go out to eat? When he goes into this locked up position, you have to change the subject. You have to go to something he or she likes. Sometimes it's a whole group of people are like that. If I'm talking to a group of people and they're all like that, I would try to find the one person who's not. And I will start to talk to them. If I cannot get these people out of this locked up position, I will only talk to that person. I call him the sacrificial goat, or the sacrificial lamb. I'm going to talk to him knowing that all the other people are listening to the conversation. Because sometimes if you take the conversation away personally, because people don't like to be confronted, they go into the defense mode, which is like this. So if you can't get them to change, then find the one that you can talk to and talk to them. It doesn't matter how they get the message as long as they get it. If you're trying to change this one person, if you're talking to one person, you don't want to be just talking to yourself. You go into a whole nother conversation and you talk about something he wants to talk about until he moves. You get him talking. Talk to him and listen to him. And when he opens again, then you try to go back into your subject. And if he goes back into this, then you know that's a subject you want to talk about, and change the subject completely. Sometimes it takes many times to get a person open enough to listen to your conversation for whatever reason. But these are the signals you should be watching for. You have to concentrate yourself. You have to physically and mentally say, I'm going to watch to see if he's listening to me. So sometimes it's difficult. It's not always easy.
How are you distributing your look, if you're addressing an audience? Do you think it would be more influential, you just not look in one direction or the direction as if you are ignoring the rest? I notice politicians, president, when they speak, they cover their whole thing. You move their head from here. So is this part of...
These people are giving lectures. They don't really care if the people are listening or not. What I'm talking about now is one-on, or where you're asking questions and answers and
I see.
That kind of thing. It's not... yes, when you're giving lectures, you should move, and that's part of... Don't even know who that is.
Yes.
You're correct. You should look, and that's part of the other book, the third book, which really I decided we would not do a class on because it's very big and it'll take a long time. It would require people to come here and write speeches and give speeches, and we're not ready for that here. But when you're speaking, yes, you should address the audience. You should stand firm, and at this time, understand that they're reading your body language. So if you're standing there speaking to an audience and moving back and forth, leg to leg, and bouncing around, then you look like you don't know what you're talking about, and yes, there's many things to do with that. But now when we're talking one-on-one, where you're talking to a group and questions and answers, and you're trying to give a short speech and then ask questions, and they ask, this is a little different. But even when you're speaking to those people, you should try to make eye contact, as you're talking about. If this person is locked up, you should make eye contact with him. Try to show him that you're really interested in what he's saying. Because if he starts talking about himself, and then you start talking to somebody over here, or you're not interested, and he's going to shut up again, and you've lost him. Our ability to use body language in a positive way and to read other people's minds through their body language separates the men from the boys, as I said, and can be a powerful tool to our overall personality development. At the same time, don't tell nobody what you're doing. If you're reading somebody's body language, don't tell him. Don't say, I know you're not interested because I can see because after he figures out that you're reading him, he's going to excuse himself or leave. Or imagine creating a great impression for work and business by being knowledgeable in not so common yet powerful field of study. It is the unspoken tool to a successful life. It can be used not just for dialogue, but for everything. Business, pleasure, all kinds of things it can be used. So read on and find out how you can realize your body language and the most used yet most misunderstood secret language in the world. Chapter 1, Reading the Signs. We use body language every day in our lives to get our message across, to achieve positive feedback in our lives, and to get whatever we want. We use this language all the time, but we not be aware of it. Moreover, the language doesn't only involve the mouth, but the whole body as well. Could you even imagine the awesome power of applying it? With it, you'll be able to interpret other people's inner emotions, even if they're not directly expressing it. You'll also be able to modify your behavior to fit the situation. You'll get them to like and trust you. What words cannot do, body language can. So even if you're not a prolific speaker, which I am not a prolific speaker, at least I know how to use body language to try to interact with people. Sometimes it's not what you say, but how you say it that gets across to the people.
Does it vary, this body language, from culture to culture?
Originally, I used to think it did, but now I don't. After dealing with Saudis and all the multiculturals we have here, it's almost universal. You have some things peculiar to you because of customs, but these are on the outside. These are things you say and do. But the body language itself is multinational. Suggesting interest, it is important to know if people are interested in what you're saying. As I was telling you, if the man is locked up or the woman is locked up, they're not interested in what you're saying. You have to change the subject and maybe come back later. You're just wasting your time. Just imagine you're an Islamic missionary or a da'i. You have always been interested in Islam, so you assume that your audience feels the same way as you do. And most people become shocked to find out that the people are not interested in what you're saying. They may be interested in part of what you're saying. If you added, as we have done in the past, culture to it, talking about weddings and all the other things that you do, people become interested. And when they can connect culture with Islam, then they have a basis. But now, based on what's being taught all over the world, they don't want to hear the word Islam. They don't want to hear these things that bring out immediate emotions that somebody's programmed into them. Sometimes you have to connect the dots to show them why everything's done the way it is here. But are they really interested? Are your speaking methods good enough to arouse the interest? Unless you can recognize the different body signals your audience is conveying, you would never know how they are adapting to the subject matter. And if you're just going so that you can speak and get the reward from Allah, that's what you will get. But if you're truly interested that the people understand what you're saying and really care about what you're saying and become Muslim, then you have to try and convey these to these people. Unless you find out if staring continuously out with blinking the eyes is a sign of interest or an indication of being in dreamland, you simply could not take the necessary steps to adjust to their learning needs. Because when in the first 5 minutes, you're going to see the reaction from the people, and even I use it when I'm teaching in school. I have to adjust or don't have to adjust? Do I have to pressure more on this point, or is it enough? They already know this subject and I go further. Well, you can read it by their body language and the small answers you get back from them. Here are some of the movements exhibited by people who are interested in what you're saying. They maintain eye contact more than 60% of the time. So if you're talking to somebody and they maintain eye contact for 60% of the time, the more wide open their eyes are. For instance, you can say something to somebody and you'll see his eyes get really big. He's really interested, or is he just...
I'm surprised.
Yes.
Sometimes surprised.
If a person maintains eye contact more when listening than when talking, their heads are inclined forward. You'll see it sometimes. Especially car salesmen use this. They will tell you the price of the car, and if you still stay back in your seat like this, as I told you, if you go like this, you're not interested at all. But if you stay back in your seat, that means you're interested, but it's not a good price, you don't want to pay it. But if you've moved to the front of your seat like this, it means you're very interested, and you're more than willing to pay that and maybe more. So they're using it against you. Are their feet pointing towards you, or are they pointed away from you? They smile frequently, but take note, not all smiles convey the same feeling. Some smiles are forced. Is it a genuine smile, or is it a forced smile? An oblong smile is not genuine. That's when it's like this, like a football. It is used to show courtesy, but not necessarily happiness or friendliness. Their lips are withheld completely back from the upper and lower teeth, forming the oblong shape. This is usually the smile that many people exhibit when they feign to enjoy a lame joke. You said some joke that I don't really like, I just smile for. Yeah, okay. But you also have to be careful because some people are guarded in their smiles. For instance, me, I was taught for a long time never to smile for any reason.
What?
Well, it had to do with the job I had. So you were supposed to be a strict face, just bland all the time. And after 10 years of doing it, it became natural and normal. Sometimes now, even I think I'm smiling inside, but when I look in the mirror, I'm not. So not everybody is the same. You just have to read different body languages. Also, because I have a little problem with hearing, I don't look directly at people when they're talking. I have to...
Oh, I see.
I'm listening because I turn my head this way. So you can't judge all people. You have to try to know the person a little bit and find out if...
Before judgment.
Yes. Indications that they're more open to agree with you. When you were a young child, have you ever tried to decode what your parents' facial expressions mean when you asked him to buy a new toy or to take you to Disneyland or to take you to somewhere buying the ice cream or something? The kids always look at your face to see if you're going to or if you're not going to. Even yesterday I was reading a book called Fast Food Nation, and it talked about all the different fast food companies, how they had went out and studied the different cries of children and the different ways that they asked their parents something. And they went into many different ways that children ask. Sometimes they whine, sometimes they beg, sometimes they actually blackmail you. They say, if you don't take me, I will hate you the rest of your life. They use all these things against us, and these are common things that they use. And then they read your body language to see if it's effective. If it's effective this time, the next time they will use the same thing. So they're reading us. This is an ability that will truly help negotiators, employers, and employees to succeed in the ventures because they would be able to change their approach early enough to adjust to a specific situation. There are certain hints to indicate if people are more receptive in accepting your ideas. Some of these are: their hands are flat on the table. If you have a table and the person's hands are flat on top of it, that means he's listening to you and he's accepting it. Their palms are open, like this. There's nothing in between. The person closed palms like this, he's not listening to you. But open like this, he is. If they're stroking their chin, they're thinking. They may agree with you after careful evaluation. After they finish thinking, they may agree with you. If you see a person thinking like this, don't rush. Slow down. Let him think. it does no good for you to go on because he's still thinking about what you said. Now, if you get 10 paragraphs past that, he doesn't know what those 10 paragraphs are. You should wait while he's thinking. And while he's thinking, maybe stay on the same subject. Try to give him a little more information to help him to make up his mind. Their heads are inclined forward, like this. Or they're nodding their head, agreeing with you. Or they're going like this, which means they're not agreeing. Their legs are spaced far apart, like mine are. If they're like this, that means they're closed and they're not agreeing. They smile frequently. They unbutton their jackets. That indicates friendliness and willingness to collaborate for you. Hands are open. This also indicates genuineness. Openness and conveys sincerity, honesty, or dedication. However, a woman putting her hands on her breast is a defensive position and indicates she's surprised or astonished. If a woman goes like this, that's defense. Be careful. Indications that they are thinking. People think all the time. My wife is always telling me, stop thinking, stop thinking, stop thinking. I say, well, if I stop thinking, I will die. Me, I think too much, even in my sleep. But different individuals make different body movements based on the type and the intensity of their thinking. Some of their actions are read below. They're stroking their chin, as I was telling you before. This means they are assessing the advantages and disadvantages of the proposal, the idea being presented to them. They take their glasses off. This also means they're thinking. And especially if they start cleaning them while you're talking, they're still thinking. Put the tip of the frame in their mouth, hold it in their mouth as another sign of thinking. They're buying themselves some time to think things over. The frame in the mouth will also likely indicate that they need more details and they are willing to listen. So if he's willing to listen and he says the frame in his mouth like that, you should, at this time, you should try to give him more information about the subject that you're talking about. For instance, if you're talking about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he starts to do like that, don't go past that. Stay on that subject until he goes out of the thinking mode. This is supposed to be one of the things that says he's still thinking, and if you go past again, he's not going to think about it or understand it. They are pinching the bridge of their nose, mostly with their eyes closed, like this. Can also mean they are thinking. People doing these are engaged in very deep thought. They may be involved in a difficult situation. They are aware of consequences that may occur as a result of making crucial decisions. When you're asking somebody to accept your religion of Islam, it's a big decision for them. And if you get to the point to where the man has closed his eyes and playing with his face, he's really, really, really in deep thought. Stay on the subject of what you're talking about. Talk slowly. Give him time to adapt to what you're thinking. Sometimes it may be a good idea at this time to take a break. If he's really in deep thought, you don't want to go any further because he's not going to understand it. And he won't remember what you're saying. Take a break. Say, let's get a cup of tea. Let's get a cup of coffee and take a few minutes. Give him some time to think over what you're talking about. Then when you come back, go back to the same subject and see what happens. See if his legs are open, if he's open to it, or if he's back in the thinking mode, he still has a headache. You don't want to go any further. You want to stay there. They put a palm below the chin, index finger pointed, and extended along the cheek, like this. That means they're really thinking again. The gesture more likely indicates thoughts that are criticizing or antagonizing other people. They walk with the head down and hands behind their back. I know you've seen people behind their back and their hands are locked together. This is also the sign of the thinking person. People who walk this way are probably worried about their problems and they are thinking of ways to solve them. Sometimes it'll help if you just ask, do you have a problem I can help you with? Or you will see their hands will come out and they will become open to you and you can talk to them. A basketball coach whose team loses by a point may say, like he's angry. Or he may just keep quiet while making certain body movements that indicate how disappointed he is. Slapping a desk, or he's not saying anything, but you can tell from his body movements that he's not happy, he's angry, frustrated, dismayed. He's scratching, rubbing the hair on the back of his neck like this. You often hear him say, tss, 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 tss. These are all body language. This is a sign. They kick the dust. You've seen people kick rocks on the ground. This is all signs that they're frustrated or dismayed.
And scratching their back.
Scratching the back of the neck, it's the same thing.
This indicates.
Yeah, it indicates that they're frustrated. They have a problem they can't fix and they're really trying to talk through.
They
Some-
are frustrated.
They're very frustrated about something. This is a good daiwa point. If you see somebody doing this, stop and talk to him. Now, brother, do you have a problem? Is there something I can help you with? If you help him with his problem, then he's going to be more open and more receptive to what you're talking about. Then this is a good time to talk to him. Indications that they are action-oriented. There's some people who just, everything has to be followed by an action, you know. Reaction, action, reaction, action. Everything you do causes somebody to react or act. People who are goal-oriented and highly motivated may not only be recognized by how they speak. Their actions actually speak louder. They walk very fast, swinging their arms, like they're marching. They put their hands on their hips, usually with legs apart. You see them standing like this. They look like they're getting ready to do jumping jacks. They walk with hands on their hips. This may indicate a spurt of vitality a moment, but may be followed by sluggishness. Maybe they're very active and then they slow down. And then they're active and they slow down. Indications they are defensive or hiding something. This is something for sure you need to know, because if they're defensive when you're talking, it does no good to go any further. The mouth might be kept a secret, but certain gestures could indicate that people are hiding something they don't want others to find out, such as they walk with their hands in their pockets. People who put their hands in the pockets, typically it's to stop from making other movements. They don't want you to see that they're nervous or frightened. They don't want you to see them scratching the back of their head. So they just shove their hands in their pocket and they stay neutral.
And this is indication of different.
Defense or hiding something they don't want you to know. They cross their arms. Anywhere where they're locked up, we call it locked up, it means there's no movement so that you can't see what's wrong. They hide their hands any way they can because the hands will show you. But it's not always true. Some people who have Parkinson's or other mild nervous disorders, my hands shake all the time, even when I'm not scared. So it's not always true. So you have to watch the hands plus the other body motions together. If he's shaking and he shoves his hands in his pocket, that may tell you that he's trying to hide his defensiveness. Also indications of boredom, and this is a very important one when you're giving speeches about Islam. If the people are bored, you're not doing your job correctly. You need to change the subject, change the way you talk. Sometimes it's the person himself, so I will introduce somebody else and let somebody else talk. Or I will ask somebody from the audience a question, giving them a few minutes to talk. But some of the signs that they're bored, clicking their pen, drumming their fingers, tapping their feet. After the meeting you hear the boss tell them, did you enjoy the presentation? They will all say, oh yes, very good, definitely. Can we go now? But you know better, they didn't like it. Their actions indicate just how bored they are. And really it's a sign, if the boss asked, or the person asked, did you enjoy the speech? It's a sign he was not a good speaker. He should have known. Within the first few minutes, he should have known whether they're bored, whether they don't want to listen, or whatever. It's the person giving the speech has to know all of these things. He doesn't have to ask. You know if the people enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it, you know. There's no reason to ask. But some of the signs of the people who are bored and disinterested include head supported by the palm, often accompanied by drooping eyes. They show inattentiveness by staring at a blank space. You'll see them looking at the ceiling, looking at the wall. They're pulling at their ears, but this also may signify that they want to interrupt while another person is talking. Sometimes when they're bored at listening to this person talking, they will go to you and interrupt him. And this is a sign that he wants to do that. But you as a speaker have to understand that. If they're bored and they want to interrupt, change the subject. Ask him if he wants to ask a question. Sidetrack them. Clicking a pen nonstop, tapping their feet or hands, yawn incessantly. People who too much means they're bored. Their feet or body parts are pointing to the exit. If his legs are pointed towards the exit, he can't wait. He wants to run out the door. You have to know these things. You're wasting yours and his time. They may move restlessly in their seat. They could also mean that they are not cozy or at ease. Sometimes you have to change his chair. Some chairs are hard and difficult, and maybe the person has a problem with his spine, but you should know this. You should ask him, are you comfortable, or would you like to move to another seat? If you move him to the best seat and he still does that, then he's probably bored and wants to go home. Cross their legs, constantly kick their foot with a very slight motion, particularly done by females. Females, when they're bored, they do this a lot. If you're the one making the presentation and you discern that your audience are displaying signs of boredom, and not just one person, I'm talking about everybody. One person could be bored and the other 9 people are listening to you. Restrain from such act even if your instincts tells you to do so. Don't talk faster, don't talk louder because they're bored. You may have to change the subject, and if it's the whole audience, into something they want to talk about. Restrain from such act even your instinct tell you to do so. Instead say, hold on, I feel that I'm losing your attention. It's okay to say, you guys are all falling asleep, we need to change the subject or do something. It's okay, let them know, I know you're bored, let's talk about something else. Hear what they have to say. Sometimes asking questions. I will stop in the middle of a speech and say, anybody have any questions? And anybody who's heard me speak, you ask people questions, they will never say they have a question. Be prepared. You have to ask yourself. Ask him a question. Sometimes asking him a question, and I can look at the audience and everybody say, yeah, that's the question I had. Sometimes you see all 10 people saying, yep, that's my question. So the general questions you get asked all the time, have them on a piece of paper like this. Jot them down and ask the audience. But be prepared again, because they're not going to answer. But you have to have the answer for this question. Then you give it, and this may start conversation. It may totally take you away from the subject that you're talking about, but you're getting through to them. They're listening now. They're answering questions, and they're asking questions, and now they're involved. Because when the audience is involved, it may make you bored, but don't show that. You just want them to become knowledgeable no matter how it comes. There's a lot of ways to drive to Riyadh. You can go to Jeddah and back up to Riyadh, or you can take the direct route from here just straight to Riyadh. So how you get there is the port, is the goal. How you get there doesn't make any difference. If you're one making the presentation, again, don't just talk faster and louder. Hear what they have to say. You may discover that actually preventing them from keeping up with you is the fact that they already know what you're talking about, and you need to change the subject to something else. You have to be able to read the body language to understand and to change to what they want to understand and what they want to know. Signals conveying excitement or interest. This is the one you're looking for. You're looking to see if your audience is interested, so you need to know what these signals are. If you've ever experienced getting a promotion or receiving a special gift, or winning a contest, I bet you've done any of these acts by excited people when you first discovered about your blessing. Oh, mashallah, I won. And you feel euphoria. And I bet you've done any of these acts by excited people when you first discovered about your blessing. Some of the movements made by excited people include: they rub their palms together. Alhamdulillah. They clap their hands, especially non-Muslims, but we as Muslims, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told us not to clap our hands. We should say Allahu Akbar instead. Their heads are tilted forward. They cross their fingers. Usually comes with the hope that something big or special will happen. Oh, I won. Oh, I hope it's something big. 1 million riyals. You see all of these things, and these are signs of excitement or interest in what you're talking about. Signals exhibiting confidence or authority or power. And this is something else you have to also understand, especially if you're talking to a group who you don't know anything about. When I go and talk to groups, I usually say that there's one person in the audience who believes himself to be the leader of the others. Almost always. Whether he is a real minister or preacher or priest or whatever is beside the point. He may be leading the others, and the others are waiting for him to speak. Sometimes I deliberately try to find this person with the intention of him saying something and me defeating him. He says something, I defeat him. He says something, I defeat him. Within the first few minutes of this, the other people in the audience says, this guy doesn't know anything. The person they've been following, they find he doesn't know anything. And they will listen Maybe he won't, maybe he will. But the point is, you want to get your point across to the whole audience, not just this one person.
Exactly.
So sometimes I try to find these people. They're people with a high degree of self-confidence, and normally more likely to be successful than those who have low self-esteem.
Is it easy to find?
For me, it is. It's usually the person that asks the question. How do we say? He only asks the question he knows the answer to. He will not ask a question that he doesn't know the answer to. He will ask the question hoping that I will say, I don't know. And sometimes I say, I don't know on purpose. So he will answer. And then when he answers, I'll say, sorry, you're wrong. The Bible does not say that. It says this, this, this. And what you said is your opinion of that. But however, all your scholars have this opinion of that. And then he's defeated. So you have to be clever about it. Be patient. Subconsciously, they feel that other people are weaker than them. So how do they move? They maintain firm eye contact and rarely look on other body parts underneath their nose. We have a saying in America that this person must get a lot of nosebleeds because they walk around like this all the time. Some people call them stuck up or high-handed. There's other names they have for these people, but they don't believe that anybody is better than them. Everybody is less than them. They speak with low-pitched, slow-paced, downward-inflected voices. Like they're always speaking down to you. They're sure that they're better than you. And really, they don't like for you to read their body language. They don't like for you to get one up on them. They become very embarrassed. Usually after 2 or 3 questions from a person like this, he will sit down and shut up and never open his mouth again. He's finished. He won't say nothing else after this. Because you've defeated him and you've proved that he's not more intelligent than you. He does not know more than you. In front of all his parishioners or his church members, you have made him to look like an idiot. He's finished. The other group will start to ask you questions. You become more knowledgeable than him. You have the answers they want to know. Whether it's about Islam or Christianity or Hinduism or atheism, you know more than him now. You've become the expert and they will start to ask you questions. But don't worry, he's still listening. It's okay, he's still listening. Their chin tilts forward like this. They maintain an erect posture. Whether standing or sitting, they're straight all the time. They sit in reverse with the back of the chair. You see them sometimes, they have the back of the chair like this and they're sitting like this. People who sit in this position are also known to be bossy and aggressive. It's a sign of authority. When he takes the chair and turns around, sits like this, he's trying to exert his power over you. It's like the person that puts the hand on top of yours like this. It's the same thing. Their hands are clenched behind their back. Their hands are placed beside their hips. The feet are on top of the table. Of course, here in Saudi Arabia, we know the feet pointing towards anybody is wrong. But they like to do this. They have a firm handshake, palms pointing down, as I told you. Not only would he put his hand on top of yours, but he will really squeeze. They lean back with both hands supporting the head like this. This is a position of authority. It has to do with higher. Even in some offices, if you in this place here, where all of our chairs are equal. But some offices you go to where the boss or somebody is trying to exert power over you, all of these chairs will be the same, and his will be higher. So if I go to some place to speak, I don't like to be up on the podium. And I don't like to be above the people. I want them to think we're equals. Because most of the other religions beside Islam, the people are not equal. There's always somebody above them. But in Islam, we're all the same. So I try to get equal to them. I like the habit of sitting on the floor like most Muslims do, and that puts everybody in the same position. To get up and speak to them, sometimes if you're lecturing, it's okay, but if you're speaking to people and you're trying to read their body language, try to make yourself equal to them. They move with precision, with no hesitation. You'll just see him. He just takes off. I got to go to the bathroom. Straight there. Not excuse me, not anything. Just straight. They walk solidly with a forceful swinging of their arms. They join the fingertips of both hands together. Small fingers of both hands joined together. Ring finger, all like this. locked up tight. The higher the hands are elevated, the more confident they are. So if he's got them on top of his head like this, he's really confident. They extend one leg over the arm of a chair. You've seen him, you put his leg over the arm like this. When they do this, it may also mean that they are apathetic, disinterested, or unconcerned. They may be exhibiting the I don't care attitude. Moreover, you can declare that your domination over the other people by raising or elevating yourself from them. Like I said, this chair would be higher than all the other chairs. Subconsciously, they think they are weaker and can easily be manipulated. Choose a chair location where other people have to look up on you. About 3 months ago now, we went to the hotel here and spoke to the man about becoming Muslim.
South Africa. Jacob.
If you remember, our chairs were in a particular position. I chose my chair on purpose where I was going to sit, and I left 2 chairs open to see which one he would choose.
I see. It's very important.
One chair was equal to us, and the other chair was down and back, and he chose the chair that was down and back. These things tell you what the person is thinking. Is he open? If he had chosen the other chair, what would have happened? These things are important. So give your audience a chance to be equal or down, or it shows you what their personality is, what kind. When he's sitting there, I noticed all the time that he always came to the front of his seat like this, which shows high interest. He's very interested. He's open. He's listening. All these things are what you should look for, so you know if your message is getting across.
I remember that.
Signals of anger and resistance. This is something that you should study really hard, because if your audience or the person you talk to becomes angry, you should stop. You should not go any further, because the anger can come into violence and it could come into other things, and you don't want this because it gives Islam a bad name.
And you will not be receptive.
Well, not only that, but it will destroy what you're doing with other people. If they see people fighting with you or something like that. For instance, if their fists are clenched, their hands or feet are tapping like this, one hand is clutching the hand or the arm or the elbow like he's restraining himself, like he's trying to stop himself. He's angry and he's trying to stop himself from doing something. Their eyes are blinking constantly because their brain is thinking, and they're very angry. If the arms are crossed over the chest like this is also a sign of restraint. He's trying to restrain himself. Collar pulled away from the neck. You see him. We call it hot under the collar. And you really are, you're hot. When you get angry, your body gets hot. Your adrenaline goes up and everything goes up, and he's pulling his collar. This is a sign of anger or resistance. They kick the dust or the air. Their arms are vertically placed on the table while their hands are gripping the edge. You've seen them sometimes. They got a hold of the edge of the table like this. This is also a sign of resistance. If you meet this, you could either try to change the subject and go into a completely neutral subject, or maybe talk to somebody else and let him calm down. But if it's one-on-one, you should just stop, and I would not go any further. You have to take a chance of somebody starting a fight or something, and it's not worth that. Well, it's 10 minutes till, so it's a good place to stop. Believe it or not, we've covered 14 pages. That means this will be finished in about 3 weeks this way. But it's an interesting subject, and it's things that we all know about, but we did not.
Brother, I have a question, Yahi. MashaAllah, what you said is very informative. But still, I feel that there is difference between different cultures related to body movement. I'll give you an example. When I was in the States, and the Major Muhammad, remember, you see, in order to call someone, you would do like this. In our Saudi culture, it is an insult, as if you are ordering. So what do we do here? We say like this.
That's mostly in Asia, not just this country.
I see.
Philippines, Thailand, all of Asia. But we're not talking about gestures, we're talking about body movements when you're speaking to somebody. So yes, there are different things in cultures, yes, but body movements themselves, the basic ones, are the same.
But some of it, it's a common sense, You can, it's understandable.
Usually when you start to...
Somebody knocking the table.
I know,
for sure.
There's a reason. But these are basic ones, and as I said before, language is not that old. We were all using hand signals before. And there's no such thing as Saudi hand signals and American hand signals, and it was just one hand signals for everybody. The basic ones are the same, but there are differences in culture, yes.
Even within the Arabs, you know, give you example. The way the Sudanese greet each other, you know, is you put the palm over the shoulder.
So do the Filipinos.
Really? Here we didn't do it. We
The
just
women
shake.
especially. My wife does it all the time to the...
Oh, I see.
So it's not just... there's
Well, in
common...
Saudi Arabia, we didn't have this way. You know, just either embrace the person or just shake hands. I don't think we.
But in America, we wouldn't do that at all. We would just shake hands. You grab somebody to hug him and kiss him, he's going to fight. So you see, all the cultures are not the same, but...
Right, and also holding hand, you know, to show friendliness and
Yeah.
humbleness, you know, when you hold someone.
There's a very common one that...
It's not,
There's a very common one that a lot of Saudis and Westerners have a problem with, and I found this out my first time here. You guys have what you call your space. Everybody has a space. An American space is an arm length. Yes. A Saudi space is a half an arm length.
Right.
So regularly you guys approach the Westerner and you get within one arm length. And if you ever notice, if somebody brings it to your attention, he moves out to an arm length. So it starts to look like you're dancing with this American. Pretty soon he'll be up the wall and he can't go nowhere else, and you just keep moving closer. If you don't understand or don't know it, you're making him very uncomfortable. He feels like his space has been invaded. But once the American knows about it, or the Westerner knows about it, then he can adapt himself. If he realizes that every time a person touches him, he's not being a homosexual, then he becomes okay with it.
Friendliness, you're expressing friendliness and humbleness, you see. Another thing you see, saying goodbye. You notice in the West of America, it is this sign. You see, we don't have this in it. It is like this sign. You see the king, the picture of the king.
Yeah, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ don't wave like the cow's tail.
Exactly. So we just do it like this. You see.
Well, this come from originally from long time ago when people carried swords with their right hand.
I see.
They showed their hand was empty
Oh, I see.
so that
Peace.
people knew he was not trying to stab him with a sword in the
I see.
night.
So this very important, you see, that the individual, the guy should be familiar with these things in order to help him to reach the others. Very, very important.
Yeah, you could have a really good speech when everybody liked and enjoyed, and then the time after you could offend the whole audience by doing something wrong. So you should know, yes. But there are some neutral positions for every country. I have found there are some neutral positions. And the one thing you could always do is either ask, does this offend you, or don't do it.
It's the best thing to ask.
Yes.
Another thing I noticed, you know, from my being teaching in the university, that in order to stop boredom, you know, so the student or the audience will not be bored, it's good to move between them, you see, who are. I
Try to be personal.
Exactly. I tried
Yes.
it works, even those who tend to be sleepy and so on, they don't, you see. And they feel that you are closer to them, whether you are da'i to Islam or you are teaching.
Be personal with each person, and sometimes it's just a matter of looking at a person and asking that person a question. Everybody likes to talk about themselves, even though they say they don't. They do like to talk about themselves. So ask them a personal about. Try to elevate their status. He could be a street sweeper all day long and never talks to nobody and just does nothing but sweep trash. But at night, if you treat him well, he'll feel like he's a king.
Exactly.
In my country, especially where I come from in my village, it was an old saying, you always treat the king like a pauper and the pauper like a king. Because they're used to being treated a certain way all day long, and if you treat them different, then they feel...
SubhanAllah. Even in the Prophet, subhanAllah, in the Prophet's way of dealing with the Sahaba, when he used to shake hand, he never let go until the other person lets go, to show humbleness and kindness. Number two, when that young youth came and asked him for permission to fornication or for fornication, he put his hand up on his chest. Kind of, you know, closeness, as if his father was talking to the son. So these are, you know, parts of the biography of Prophet Muhammad that he practiced, you know, he practiced body movement, body language.
And he probably didn't know he was practicing it, but he did it just normal and natural. And so if you didn't know any of these things we're teaching from the class, if you just read the books and followed the way of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, you would be successful in your dialogue. That's the easiest way.
And also, if you want to,
Your voice is very soft. I can't hear you.
suppose, brother Yahya, if you want to take that guy which you are talking to him, if you want to take his attention, is there any way to change your voice tune, talk during talking? Is it also this way is affect can affect?
Well, most people don't like to be talked about or talked to. There's a saying that says that people don't like to be talked at. In other words, I'm just talking at you. I'm not really. It's not a conversation of me and you. You're listening and I'm talking, so I'm talking at you. They like to be talked to. In other words, I talk, you listen, and then you talk, and I listen. So they feel like they're part of the conversation. It's okay to change your tone, but you should not be very loud, because then he feels like you're yelling at him or you're scolding him like his mother and father did. Sometimes the best thing to do when you're talking to people is to take them out of their environment. You don't have to take him to the best restaurant in the city, but just take him out of his environment. Take him to the park or something and buy a shawarma, it doesn't cost much, 1 riyal, 2 riyals, 3 riyals, and take him out of his environment and you make him feel more relaxed and more at ease. And then he feels like you're really concerned and you're really talking to him.
My final question, brother Yahya. I read a book by American author Carnegie. It's called How to Gain. Put it off, please. How to gain friends and affect others. Among the things that he said, sometimes you should be a good listener, and then you will be surprised that you meet someone for the first time and you give him a chance or give her a chance to speak, listen to him, and finally you'll find him talking about you. Say, oh, he's a good speaker, although you will listen to him. This means you have reached his heart
But
by listening to him.
This is something I got from my grandfather. He told me one time, he said, if you're smart, you will listen to whoever you're talking to. He said, don't spend much time talking. He says, if you listen, you will learn everything that man knows, and then you will have all of his knowledge and all your knowledge. So you'll have double of him. So somebody here in Saudi Arabia once asked me why I don't talk very much. I said, it's so that I know everything you know and everything I know. But it's just common sense. You can speak with a person, but try to listen to most what he has to say. It doesn't hurt.
Yes. I mean, Carnegie says in his book, that the result that you gain, that this person that you gave him a chance to speak and you listen to him, he will end up by liking you and saying he's a good speaker, although most of the speech has been done by you, by him.
That's some of the best speeches you can do, is when everybody else talks and you just stand there and listen. It's easier. You can give more that way. Well, this is the end of our program today. See you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.